Chapter 1. Another day. Another lie. The words of the old farmer drone on and on, something about a stolen sheep, but I can't focus. The air in the throne room is thick, stale with duty. From my gilded cage of a throne, I see it all. The bored lords, the whispering ladies, the weight of a crown I never asked for. And then, he arrives. My brother Damien strolls in late, a smirk playing on his lips that promises trouble. He looks like a prince from a storybook, all golden hair and chiseled jaw, but his eyes hold a chilling emptiness. He claps the old farmer on the back, his voice booming through the hall. Surely, brother, you have more important things to do than listen to this old goat bleat about his livestock? A wave of titters ripples through the court. The farmer flushes a deep, painful red. My wolf, the beast I keep chained deep inside, stirs with a low growl. My jaw tightens. I raise a single calm hand and the room falls silent. Dead silent. The man's problem is the kingdom's problem, I say, my voice dangerously soft. And the kingdom's problem is mine. My gaze locks with Damien's, a silent war waged in a heartbeat. To be king, you must be the immovable object. To be king, you must be the final word. To be king, you must be a monster in a prettier cage than your brothers. He looks away first, his smirk faltering. Court is dismissed, I announce, the weariness settling into my bones like a deep frost. I stand and walk down from the dais, a river of bowing lords and curtsying ladies parting before me. I pass a line of servants pressed against the wall, their heads bowed, their faces invisible. Just faces in the crowd. Parts of the castle I own, but never truly see. More importantly, a courtier rushes to my side, his face pale. Your Majesty. Prince Damien requests a private audience. He says it is urgent. Urgent. With Damien, that could mean anything from a declaration of war to a scuffed boot. And yet, a cold knot tightens in my stomach. Something feels different this time. Chapter 2. The moment I step into my private study, the smell of Damien's expensive cologne hits me. A cloying, arrogant scent. He's already there, pacing in front of the massive fireplace, his shadow dancing like a demon on the stone walls. He doesn't bother with greetings. "That was a disgrace," he snaps, whirling to face me. "You let that peasant waste your time and you humiliated me to do it." I walk past him to my desk, my fingers tracing the borders on a map of the Northern Territories. A trade dispute is brewing there, a real problem that needs a king's mind, not a spoiled prince's tantrum. Your lateness humiliated you, Damien. Your cruelty did the rest. Cruelty? He lets out a sharp, bitter laugh. It's not cruelty, it's order. Something this castle lacks. The servants are insolent. They whisper in the halls, they move too slow. His eyes narrow into slits. And some of them are thieves. Deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't about all the servants. This was about one. There is one girl, he continues, his voice dropping to a venomous hiss. A little slip of a thing, always in the shadows. I saw her. I saw her take a silver locket from Lady Annalise's chambers. I finally look up from the map, my gaze heavy. Do you have proof? I have my eyes. Of course he does. No matter how hard I tried to teach him, Damien's world was simple. What he saw was truth, and what he wanted was law. Maybe it was fate that he was born second. Maybe it was a mercy. So, I make a mistake. A terrible, world-altering mistake. Because of that, everything that is to come is my fault. My mind is on the trade routes, on the threat of war, on the 1,000 other burdens of a king. This feels small, petty. Handle it then, I say, my voice dismissive. I turn my back on him, a gesture I hope signals the end of this foolishness. Just do it, quietly. The silence stretches. I hear him take a breath, a sharp, pleased sound. I don't see the smile that spreads across his face, but I feel it. A cold, sharp shiver down my spine. Eventually, the door clicks shut, leaving me alone with my maps and a sudden, horrible feeling that I've just handed a lit torch to a boy who loves to watch things burn. Chapter 3. That night, the great hall glitters. Chandeliers drip with crystal light, casting dancing diamonds across the polished marble floor. The air hums with music and laughter and the sweet, cloying scent of wine and perfume. I stand on the upper dais, a goblet in my hand, playing my part. I smile. I nod. I listen to a fat lord drone on about his hunting dogs. It's the life of a king, a performance that never ends. But then, something inside me shifted. A strange energy prickles the air, a sudden drop in pressure that makes the hairs on my arms stand up. My wolf, dormant and caged all evening, suddenly lifts its head. Its senses are 1,000 times sharper than mine. It smells something wrong. My eyes scan the crowd, searching for the source of the disturbance. I see lords and ladies, musicians and guards. And then I see him. Damien. He's not mingling. He's not charming some poor, unsuspecting lady. Instead, he's standing near the servants' entrance, half hidden by a thick velvet curtain. And he's not just standing there. He's waiting. Hunting. A predatory stillness has settled over him, and the smile on his face. It's the cruelest thing I've ever seen. My heart gives a hard, painful thud against my ribs. Quietly, I had told him. Before I can move, he lunges through the doorway. Without warning, a gasp ripples through the hall. The music falters. Laughter dies. Everyone turns to see what has broken the perfect, polished illusion of the evening. And I see it too. Damien is dragging a girl out into the center of the hall. She's small, dressed in the simple gray frock of a servant, her dark hair tumbling over her face. She stumbles, her bare feet scraping on the cold marble. She's terrified. I can smell her fear from across the room, a sharp, coppery scent that cuts through all the perfume. He throws her to the floor before the dais. She lands in a crumpled heap. The wolf inside me doesn't just stir, it rages. My goblet slips from my fingers, shattering on the stone, but I don't hear it. The world narrows to the sight of my brother standing over this trembling, helpless girl. In that moment, I am not a king. I am a storm about to break. Chapter 4. Damien sneers, his voice dripping with poison for the whole court to hear. This little rat was caught stealing, a thief who deserves to be taught a lesson about touching what isn't hers. The girl on the floor, Lyra, she doesn't speak, she doesn't cry. She just pushes herself up to her knees, her small chin lifting with a pride that has no place on a marble floor. In her eyes, I see a flicker of a storm, a wildness that my own soul recognizes. And my brother, my foolish, cruel brother, mistakes that fire for insolence. Crack. The sound of his hand striking her cheek echoes off the high stone walls. It's sharper than shattering glass, uglier than a scream. The girl's head snaps to the side, a spray of dark hair hiding her face. And just like that, everything changed. It isn't anger that hits me. No. This is something else entirely. It's a tidal wave of pure, primal force slamming into my chest, stealing the air from my lungs. My vision tunnels, the glittering court, the stunned faces, the chandeliers. It all fades to gray. All I see is her. A possessive, killing rage floods every part of me. The wolf I keep locked away doesn't just rattle its cage, it shatters it. Mine. The word isn't a thought, it's a brand, a truth my soul has just screamed into existence. Without thinking, my body moves on instinct. I am off the dais in 2 long, silent strides, a predator unleashed. The lords and ladies scramble out of my path, their faces masks of terror. They don't see their king anymore. They see the alpha. I stop directly in front of my brother, shielding her small frame with my own. He looks at me, his eyes wide with shock, the first flicker of fear dawning in their depths. He opens his mouth to speak, but a low growl rumbles up from my chest, a sound that promises nothing but violence. His mouth snaps shut. As the silence roared, I leaned in close. my voice a low, lethal whisper meant only for him. Mark her again, and die. Chapter 5. Time stood still. The entire court held its breath, trapped in the terrifying quiet that followed my vow. Damien's face is a mask of disbelief, his skin pale beneath the golden torchlight. He looks from my face, from the promise of death in my eyes, down to the girl kneeling at my feet. The space between them burned. "Guards," I command, my voice low but carrying to every corner of the hall. 2 of my personal royal guards step forward, their faces grim. "Take her to the royal infirmary. Now." Not the dungeons, the infirmary. The words are a declaration, a shield thrown around her. As they gently help the girl to her feet, Damien finally finds his voice, hissing at my side. "Reese, what is the meaning of this? Have you lost your mind? She is a common thief." I don't turn to look at him. My eyes follow the guards as they lead her away, her small form looking so fragile between their massive frames. "I will be the judge of that." "You humiliate me before the entire court. For a servant," he sputters, his rage making him reckless. Finally, I turn. I let him see the cold fury in my eyes, the absolute lack of brotherly feeling there at this moment. "You humiliated yourself when you struck a defenseless woman. You dishonored my court. And you will be silent until I tell you to speak." Each word is a chip of ice. The king is back in control, but the wolf is still there, pacing just beneath my skin, ready to rip out his throat. Truth be told, a part of me is reeling. I don't understand this feeling. This overwhelming, soul-deep need to protect a girl whose name I didn't even know moments ago. My duty, my oath to my father. It all feels like a distant fog compared to this one. Sharp, undeniable instinct. Without another word, I turn my back on my brother's spluttering rage. He is my blood, my family, the last piece of my father I have left. But as I walk away, following the path my guards took, I know, deep in my bones, that I am not following them. I am following her. Chapter 6. The royal infirmary smells of dried herbs and clean linen, a stark contrast to the chaos of the great hall. It's a quiet, peaceful place, but the tension in the air is so thick I could cut it with a knife. The royal healer, a kind elderly woman named Alara, is dabbing a soothing balm onto Lyra's cheek. The mark is a stark, angry red against her pale skin, a brand of my brother's cruelty, a mark of my own failure. Lyra sits perfectly still on the edge of the cot, her hands clasped in her lap. She doesn't look at the healer. She doesn't look at anything. She's staring at a point on the far wall, her mind 1,000 miles away, locked in a cage of shock and fear. I take a step closer, and she flinches. Her whole body jerks, a sharp, terrified movement, and her eyes fly to mine. They are wide with a fear that twists a knife in my gut. A beat later, I realize she isn't just scared of what happened. She's scared of me. She saw what I was in the hall, the monster that stared down my brother. She doesn't see a king who saved her. She sees a bigger, more dangerous predator. Her breath caught, and in that moment, something inside me broke. This fierce, possessive bond I felt. What good was it if it only brought her more terror? Her world tilted, and so did mine. I stop, holding up a hand to show I mean no harm. "I will not hurt you," I say, and my voice is softer than I have ever heard it. The healer finishes her work and bows, scurrying from the room and leaving us in a heavy silence. For a long time, we just stare at each other. Her, with her terrified, defiant eyes. Me, with a storm of confusion and a strange, aching tenderness in my chest. I need answers. I need to know why my very soul roared to life for a servant girl. And I know with absolute certainty that I cannot get those answers if she is locked in a dungeon or sent back to the servants' quarters where Damien's spies can reach her. I make a decision. The king in me calls it a political necessity. The wolf in me calls it claiming what is mine. I turn to the guard at the door. "Prepare the queen's old suite in the east wing. She will be my ward until this matter is settled. She is to be given anything she needs, and she is to be protected, at all costs. The guard's eyes widen, but he bows his head. Yes, Your Majesty. I leave without looking at her again. I can't bear to see that fear in her eyes one more time, but as the door closes behind me, her scent clings to me. It's the scent of her fear, sharp and metallic. And something else. Something beneath it all. A fragrance like night-blooming jasmine and a coming storm. A scent my wolf recognizes even if I don't. And it's a scent I know I will never, ever get enough of. Chapter 7. The Queen's Suite. A gilded cage within my own stone prison. The air in here is different. It smells of dried roses and dust, of a woman who has been a ghost for a decade. But now, another scent weaves through it all. That smell of night jasmine and a coming storm. Her scent. It clings to the velvet curtains and the silk sheets, a quiet invasion that my wolf welcomes with a deep, rumbling purr. She stands by the window, a small, dark shape against the morning light, looking so out of place in this room of opulent gold and deep crimson. She's wearing a simple silk nightgown, one of my mother's, and it hangs off her small frame, making her look like a child playing dress-up. But she is no child. No, the fear in her eyes is ancient. My goal is simple. I need answers. I need to understand why the sight of her being hurt felt like a physical blow to my own soul. So I try to use the one tool I have always relied on: authority. Tell me your name, I say, my voice softer than I intended. She turns from the window, her eyes wide and haunted. Lyra. Her voice is a whisper, a fragile thing. Lyra, I repeat, testing the name on my tongue. It feels right. It feels familiar. Who are you, Lyra? Where are you from? I'm trying to be a king conducting an inquiry, but my heart is pounding in my chest like a war drum. With every heartbeat, my wolf presses forward, wanting to close the distance between us to soothe the terror rolling off her in waves. She just shakes her head, wrapping her arms around herself. Nowhere important. Frustration, hot and sharp, prickles at my skin. I am a king. Men tremble when I speak. Kingdoms bow to my will. Yet this slip of a girl defies me with her silence. Everyone is from somewhere? Maybe it was fate that pushed me too hard. She looks at me then, really looks at me, and her gaze is so full of broken things it almost brings me to my knees. I am no one, she whispers, and the words are not an evasion. They are a belief, a truth she has lived her entire life. Just a servant. In that moment, I see the truth. My power, my crown, my title. They are not tools here. They are walls. Huge, stone walls between me and the one thing in the world I suddenly want more than anything else. The truth hidden in her terrified eyes. I have to find a different way. Because of that, I know I am in more danger than I have ever been. Without another word, I turn and leave. The gesture feels like a retreat, a surrender. At the door, I pause. You will be safe here, I say to the empty air. It feels like a promise. And a lie. Because I don't think either of us will be safe until I understand the storm she has brought into my world. Chapter 8. From the quiet cage of the Queen's Suite, I walk straight into the lion's den. The doors to the council chamber are massive, carved from ancient oak, and they swing open with a low groan, as if reluctant to let me enter. Inside, the air is cold and judgmental. My council is assembled. 10 old wolves, their faces carved from granite and their eyes sharp with disapproval. They have served my family for generations, and they believe they know what is best for the kingdom. More importantly, they believe they know what is best for me. Lord Valerius, my father's most trusted advisor, steps forward. His back is ramrod straight, his white beard so perfectly trimmed it looks like spun silver. Your Majesty, he begins, his voice a gravelly rumble. The court is unsettled. Unsettled is a gentle word for it, my lord, I reply, walking to my seat at the head of the massive table. I do not sit. I stand, forcing them all to look up at me. Speak plainly. Valerius's jaw tightens. You publicly shamed your own brother. You took a common servant, a girl accused of theft, and placed her in the queen's own chambers. He takes a breath. They are whispering. They say your judgment is clouded. My wolf snarls at the challenge, but I keep my voice level, cold as a winter river. My judgment is my own. The girl was assaulted in my hall. She is now under my protection. That is all you need to know. Deep down, I knew the truth. They were right to be concerned. My actions were illogical, rash, and politically dangerous. I had chosen instinct over strategy, and that is how kings lose their crowns. But I would not, could not, back down. Not on this. Not for her. A king's heart must be ruled by his head for the good of the kingdom. Valerius presses, his eyes pleading with me to be the boy he once mentored, not the alpha who now stood before him. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken rebellion. My head and my heart agree, I say, and the finality in my tone is a slamming door. The girl is under my protection. The matter is closed. I turn to leave, a clear dismissal. I have won, for now. I have silenced them with the sheer force of my will. But as I reach the door, a young aide, pale with fear, hurries to my side. He leans in and whispers, his voice trembling. Your Majesty, there is a rumor. Prince Damien is telling everyone that the girl is not a thief. I pause, my hand on the door. He is telling them, the aide continues, barely breathing, that she is a foreign witch, and she has put a spell on you. Chapter 9. Witch. The word is a poisoned dart. It's a lie so clever, so perfect in its wickedness, that only Damien could have crafted it. It explains my irrational behavior. It turns Lyra from a victim into a predator, and it makes her a target for every superstitious fool in the kingdom. Fury propels me through the castle, not the hot, blind rage of the wolf, but a cold, sharp fury. A king's fury. I need to find her. I need to see that she's safe. My feet carry me, without thought, to the one place of peace in this stone labyrinth, the royal gardens. And there she is. But she is not at peace. She's standing by the rose bushes, cornered. 3 court ladies, their silk gowns the colors of bright, venomous jewels, have surrounded her. Lady Seraphina, Damien's latest flirtation, is leading the attack. So strange, Seraphina is saying, her voice a sweet, sugary poison. To be plucked from the dirt and dropped into a palace, you must have some special talents. She reaches out a manicured hand, as if to touch Lyra's hair. Lyra doesn't cower. She doesn't cry. She just stands there, her small shoulders back, her chin high. In the face of their mockery, she wraps herself in a cloak of unbreakable dignity. My heart aches with a fierce, painful pride. My wolf sees what I see. Not a servant, not a victim, a queen. Before Seraphina's fingers can touch a single strand of her hair, my voice cuts through the air like a blade. Leave her. The 3 ladies freeze, then whirl around. The color drains from their faces when they see me. Their pretty smiles crumble into masks of pure terror. They curtsy so low their foreheads nearly touch the grass, then they practically run from the garden, their fine silks fluttering behind them. The air thickens. Now, it is just the 2 of us. She is still trembling from the confrontation, but her eyes, when they meet mine, are not just filled with fear anymore. There is something else in them now. A question, maybe even a flicker of trust. As if pulled by a string, I walk towards her, stopping just before her. The scent of roses mixes with her own unique fragrance, and it's intoxicating. Without thinking, I do something a king should never do. I show my vulnerability. I offer her a choice. I extend my arm, my hand open, my elbow crooked. An invitation. Her eyes widen. She looks at my arm, then back at my face. She doesn't know what scares her more, the enemies she can see, or the powerful, unpredictable man standing before her. For a long, silent moment, she hesitates. The entire world seems to hold its breath. Then, slowly, hesitantly, she places her small, cool hand on my arm. The moment her skin touches mine, a jolt, hot as lightning, shoots through my entire body. The mate bond, a half-formed, ghostly thing until now, flares to life with a blinding intensity. And I know, with a certainty that shakes me to my very soul, that my life as I knew it is over. And I let it happen. Chapter 10. The court is a sea of whispers. After I walked with Lyra through the garden, her hand on my arm, the whispers became a storm. I can feel their eyes on me now, in my own throne room, judging, questioning. But the weight of their stares is nothing compared to the phantom warmth of her touch, a brand on my skin that my wolf is still purring over. Moments later, Damien approaches the throne. He doesn't swagger. He doesn't smirk. Instead, he walks with a false humility that sets every one of my senses on high alert. He stops before the dais and performs a deep, perfect bow. "Brother," he says, his voice ringing with a sincerity that would fool anyone but me. "I was wrong." The court gasps. "My temper got the best of me," he continues, his gaze fixed on the floor. "I acted dishonorably toward you, and toward the girl. I have come to publicly apologize and accept any punishment you see fit." My wolf. It laughs. A cold, bitter sound in the back of my mind. Liar. 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 I stare down at my brother, at this perfect performance. He is a master of this game, a snake shedding its skin for all to see. To the court, he looks like a repentant prince. To me, he looks like a predator setting a trap. He is doing this because the witch rumor is working, and now he needs to appear reasonable, the sane brother dealing with an enchanted king. "Your apology is noted," I say, my voice a flat, hard stone. "There will be no punishment. For now." A murmur of approval ripples through the lords. They see a merciful king. I see a fool who has just let a viper back into the nest. But then, Damien looks up, and for a fraction of a second his eyes gleam with triumph. And I know, this is not over. That night, I summon my spy master, Kale. He is a man made of shadows, his face a map of secrets. He moves without a sound, materializing in my study like a ghost. "I have a task for you," I tell him, my voice low. "The girl, Lyra. I want to know everything. Where she was born, who her parents were, every breath she has ever taken." Kale nods once, his dark eyes unreadable. "It will be done, Your Majesty." He turns to leave, but I stop him. "And Kale?" I have a feeling my brother is looking for the same answers. Beat him to it. I have to move faster, because I know Damien isn't just seeking information, he's searching for a weapon. A few days later, as the tension in the castle thickens into a suffocating fog, Kale returns. His face is paler than usual, his expression grim. "Your Majesty," he says, his voice barely a whisper. "There is a problem." "What is it?" He looks me straight in the eye. "She doesn't exist. There are no records of a Lyra born anywhere in this kingdom for the last 25 years. No family name, no history. According to our archives, the girl is a ghost." Chapter 11. A Ghost. The word hangs in the air of my study for 3 long days, a chilling prophecy I can't shake. Every time I see Lyra, walking quietly in the gardens, or staring out the window of her gilded cage, I see a girl untethered from the world, a beautiful mystery that my brother wants to turn into a weapon. The bond between us hums constantly now, a low thrum beneath my skin, a silent song only my soul can hear. It calls to her. It demands I protect her. But how can I protect a ghost? On the 3rd night, a storm breaks over the castle. Rain lashes against the windows, and the wind howls like a hungry wolf. It's on this night that Kale returns. He doesn't knock. The door just opens, and he is there, dripping rainwater onto the priceless rugs. In his hand, he holds a leather scroll, its seal cracked and ancient. "I found something," he says, his voice raspy. "Not in our archives, in the missionary records from the Greywood border camps, from after the Silverwood War." My heart stops. The Silverwood War. A bloody, brutal affair from 2 decades ago. A massacre that secured my father's borders and stained our family name. Kyle places the scroll on my desk. My hands tremble as I unroll the brittle parchment. The ink is faded, the handwriting of a dying priest recounting the horrors of a refugee camp. He wrote of disease, of starvation, and of a woman. A lady of the Silverwood court dying of a fever, who pushed her infant daughter into his arms. My eyes scan the faded script, my breath catching in my throat. Gave me her child, a girl named Lyra. The last of the royal bloodline begged me to hide her. She bears the crescent moon birthmark on her shoulder, the royal mark of the Silverwood queens. The room spins. The howling of the wind outside is nothing compared to the roar in my own ears. Lyra, the crescent moon. I saw it, just for a second, when the sleeve of her nightgown slipped. The last of the royal bloodline. The bond. It wasn't just a mate bond. No. It was more. It was my alpha blood recognizing her royal blood, my soul answering the call of a lost queen. And then, the final soul-shattering piece clicks into place. The Silverwood massacre, the brutal, efficient campaign that wiped out their entire royal line. It was the first great military victory of a young, ambitious commander, the victory that made his name and earned him his title. My brother, Prince Damien. The scroll slips from my fingers. It isn't just that he slapped her. It isn't just that he wants her gone. He is the monster who slaughtered her entire family. He is the butcher who destroyed her kingdom. And she has been living under his roof, a ghost haunting the man who murdered her past. In the span of a breath, the weight on my shoulders is no longer just a crown. It is the crushing weight of my brother's sins. And I know, with a clarity that feels like dying, that the question is no longer if I will choose between my blood and my bond. My blood is the enemy. Chapter 12. The storm outside rages on, but inside me a terrifying calm has settled. The shock has burned away, leaving behind something cold, hard, and lethal. I am no longer a king struggling with a difficult choice. I am an executioner looking at his target. I need to see her. I find her where I always find her, in the gardens which are now drenched and dripping after the storm. The air smells of wet earth and broken blossoms. She is standing under the stone arch of a gazebo, watching the last of the raindrops fall from the leaves, her face tilted up to the clearing sky. And when I look at her, everything is different. I don't see a servant girl anymore. I see a survivor. I don't see a frightened ward. I see a hidden monarch. I don't see the girl my brother wants to destroy. I see the queen he tried and failed to erase from the world. Her unbreakable dignity, her quiet strength, her unconscious grace. It all makes a terrible, beautiful sense now. She is a queen down to her very bones. My soul answered her, not because she was my mate, but because she was her. A queen in rags, a lioness in a field of lambs. Rage, pure and white-hot, boils in my veins. It's a rage for her stolen life, for her murdered family, for the years she spent scrubbing floors in the very castle that was paid for with the blood of her people. And beneath the rage, a guilt so profound it threatens to swallow me whole. My family did this. My bloodline is built on the ashes of hers. My mission is no longer simply to protect her. It is to guard a sacred truth. I must keep her identity safe until she is strong enough to bear it, until I can find a way to give her back the justice she is owed. I must become a traitor to my own house to be true to my own soul. As if summoned by my dark thoughts, a voice cuts through the quiet garden. "Brother?" I turn. Damien is standing there, an umbrella in one hand, that familiar, arrogant smirk back on his face. He looks past me, at Lyra, his eyes narrowing with a look of pure contempt. He sees nothing but an obstacle, an annoyance, a pet. He turns his gaze back to me, his smirk widening into a grin that shows too many teeth. "We need to talk," he says, his voice dripping with condescending amusement. "About your new pet." Chapter 13, Pet. The word so casual and cruel lands like a whip strike. My brother stands there dripping rainwater and arrogance, and in that moment, the last fragile thread of brotherly love inside me snaps. I am no longer a king trying to manage a volatile prince. I am a wolf staring at a threat to his mate. I turn slowly, deliberately placing myself between him and Lyra. She flinches behind me, her small hand tightening on my arm. A growl rumbles in my chest, low and dangerous, a promise I am struggling to contain. "She has a name," I say, my voice dangerously calm. Damien's smirk falters, just for a second. He sees the change in me, the finality. "Ah, yes, Lyra," he says, recovering quickly. "Whatever she is, she has become a complication." The court whispers. "They say you are not yourself, that this little stray has you bewitched." "The court whispers what you tell them to whisper," I counter, each word a stone dropped into a frozen lake. He takes a step closer, lowering his voice into a conspiratorial hiss. "Brother, be reasonable. She's a nobody, a pretty distraction perhaps, but she is making you look weak. And a weak king." He lets the threat hang in the air, a shimmering poison. "Well, weak kings do not last long. Pets can be put down if they become a nuisance." The air thickened, charged with unspoken violence. My hand clenches into a fist at my side, my nails biting into my palm. He thinks this is a game of politics, of perception. He has no idea he is playing with fire, with a truth that could burn our entire kingdom to the ground. As if fate demanded it, I let a cold, knowing smile touch my own lips. "You should be careful what you call a nuisance, Damien. Sometimes the smallest stones are the ones that start an avalanche." I lean in, my voice dropping even lower. "And you should be careful what graves you dig. Even old ghosts can haunt the living, especially those with royal blood." I see it. The flicker of genuine shock in his eyes. He doesn't know what I know, but he knows that I know something. The game has changed, the board has been reset, and he is no longer the only one with a secret. He thought he was the hunter, but he's just realized there's another predator in the forest with him. He opens his mouth, then closes it. For the first time in his life, my brother is speechless. Without another word, he turns and stalks away, his arrogant stride now stiff with uncertainty. The battle lines have been drawn, not in the dirt, but in the space between heartbeats. This is my point of no return. I have chosen. And just like that, everything changed. I am no longer just protecting a girl. I am plotting the resurrection of a queen. Chapter 14. After that, the castle becomes a chessboard. Every glance is a move, every whisper a strategy. Damien watches me with a new, wary respect, and I watch him like a hawk. But my most important moves happen in secret, in the quiet solitude of the royal library. I tell Lyra she must learn the ways of the court to survive, a plausible lie. The truth is, I am teaching her how to rule. "This is a map of the Northern Territories," I say, my voice echoing slightly in the vast, silent room. The air here smells of old paper and leather, a scent of history and truth. We are standing over a massive oak table, an ancient hand-drawn map spread between us. Our wealth comes from the trade routes here, but our biggest rival for those routes was always— I pause, letting her find the name herself. Her small finger traces a line across the parchment, stopping on a faded kingdom marked by a crescent moon. "Silverwood," she whispers, her own name for a home she can't remember. Her voice trembles just a little. "Correct," I say, my heart aching for her. "To understand your enemies, you must understand their history." So, I teach her. Day after day, we sit among the towering shelves of books. I teach her the politics of our neighboring kingdoms. I teach her the genealogies of the great houses. I teach her the laws of the land. It's all a pretense, a way to give her the weapons she will need, the knowledge that is her birthright. And something else is happening in this dusty, quiet room. Between one breath and the next, the space between us shrinks. She stops flinching when I get close. She starts meeting my eyes, her gaze full of a burning curiosity. The bond, that wild, primal thing, is changing. It's deepening, settling from a roaring fire into a warm, steady glow that fills the space between us. One afternoon, I am showing her the trade routes that pass through the Silverwood Mountains. My hand rests on the map, and to point out a mountain pass, she places her hand next to mine. Her fingers brush against my own. Fire. It blooms beneath my skin, a searing heat that races up my arm and straight to my soul. A gasp escapes her lips, and her eyes fly to mine. They are wide, not with fear, but with a dawning, shocked wonder. She feels it too, clear as day. The air crackles. Time stood still. Her scent, that intoxicating mix of jasmine and storms, floods my senses, and the wolf inside me howls with triumph. This is no longer just a duty. This is no longer just a bond. This is a man falling for a queen. Her cheeks flush a beautiful rosy pink, and she pulls her hand back as if burned. But the damage is done. A line has been crossed. Later that evening, as she is about to leave the library, she pauses at the door. "Your Majesty?" she says, her voice small. "Yes, Lyra?" Why are you doing all of this? For me?" The question hangs in the air, simple and devastating. I can't tell her that her dignity deserves a kingdom. I can't tell her that I am trying to give her back a stolen crown, so I tell her a different kind of truth. "Because," I say, my voice raw with an emotion I can no longer hide, "when I look at you, I don't see a servant. I see potential." It is the biggest understatement of my life. Chapter 15. Damien is not a fool. He sees the change in me. He sees the long hours I spend with Lyra in the library. He sees the way I look at her. He may not know what she is, but he knows she is becoming my weakness, or my strength, which meant he had to act. I am in the war room, reviewing patrol reports, when the messenger bursts in. He is a young soldier from the eastern frontier, his face pale with exhaustion, and his uniform caked in mud. "Your Majesty," he gasps, falling to one knee. "Raiders from the Stonefall Mountains. They've crossed the border. They've burned 3 villages and are marching on Fort Kalen." A cold dread washes over me. The Stonefall clans are savage, but they are not organized. They do not march. They raid. This feels wrong. It feels orchestrated. My generals and I spend the next hour hunched over the maps. The reports are chaotic, contradictory, but one thing is clear. The garrison at Fort Kalen cannot hold. If it falls, the entire Eastern Territory is vulnerable. As a result, there is only one choice. "Prepare my horse," I command, my voice grim. "Summon the Royal Guard. We ride at dawn." My lords protest. They tell me it is too dangerous. They tell me to send a general. But I know this is a test. A king cannot lead from the rear. A king must show his strength, or his enemies will smell his fear. But deep down, she was the one I feared for. This is Damien's move. I know it in my bones. He has created a crisis, a fire on the other side of the kingdom to pull me away from the castle, to pull me away from her. He has set the board, and I am being forced to walk right into his trap. That night, my heart is a heavy, leaden weight in my chest. Leaving her now feels like leaving a part of my own soul behind, exposed and undefended. I find my most trusted guard, the captain of my personal detail, a grizzled old wolf named Torin. "I am riding for the east," I tell him, my voice low and urgent. "You are to remain here. You will not leave the castle. You will not leave her side." Torin's weathered face is a mask of stoic loyalty. She will be safe, my king. I clasp his shoulder, my grip tight. Torin, my brother will see my absence as an opportunity. Do not let him near her, no matter what. My eyes lock with his. Protect her with your life. He nods once, the promise a silent oath between us. Come morning, as the first gray light of dawn touches the sky, I ride out at the head of my army. As we pass through the main gate, I can't stop myself from looking up at the high window of the east wing, the window to her rooms. Is she watching? Does she know the danger I'm leaving her in? I don't see her. The window is dark and empty, and the feeling of riding away from her, it's the hardest thing I have ever done. Chapter 16. The smell of the eastern frontier is wrong. It should smell of blood and smoke. Instead, it smells of damp earth and fear. We ride into the first village, the one the reports claimed was a smoldering ruin, and find nothing. Huts are intact. The livestock is safe. The villagers stare at us, their faces pale and confused, not with the horror of a raid, but with the shock of seeing the royal guard thundering down their quiet dirt road. There were no raiders, Your Majesty, the village elder tells me, his voice trembling. Just a fire, an accident in the hay barn. A fire, an accident, not an invading clan. The trap springs shut with a silent, sickening snap. My blood runs cold. I look at my generals, at the 1,000 soldiers I pulled from the capital, and I see it all with horrifying clarity. A chessboard, and my brother has just played me like a fool. He created a ghost to lure a king across a kingdom. Sound the retreat, I roar, my voice raw with a dawning panic. We ride for the capital, now! We turn our horses, the entire army wheeling around in a chaotic surge. But then, as my communications officer tries to send a raven back to the castle, he comes to me, his face ashen. My king, he starts, his voice shaking. The messenger ravens from the rookery. They're gone, all of them, and the signal towers between here and the capital. They are not responding. My communications are cut. I am blind. I am deaf. And I am a 2-day ride from her. Without thinking, I spur my horse into a gallop, breaking away from the army. I ride alone. My royal guard struggles to keep pace, but they are not fueled by what I am fueled by. They are not fueled by the soul-tearing terror of a mate in danger. The wind whips at my face, stealing the breath from my lungs, but all I can hear is the frantic, desperate pounding of my own heart. Faster, faster, you have to be faster, faster. You. Chapter 17. I ride for 2 days and a night, stopping for nothing. My horse is slick with sweat, its lungs heaving, but I push it on, push it past all endurance. Because every moment I waste is a moment my brother has with her. When I finally see the spires of Argent Spire Castle, it is not with relief, but with a new, colder dread. The main gates are closed, barred, and the banners flying from the ramparts are not just my own silver wolf, but Damien's black falcon as well. He's made his move. He's seized control. I circle the castle, my heart a block of ice in my chest, and find a hidden postern gate I used as a boy. It's ajar. I slip inside, my hand on the hilt of my sword, my senses screaming. The castle is quiet. Too quiet. A graveyard quiet. And then I find him. Torin, my captain, my friend. He's slumped against a wall in a shadowed alcove, a dark, ugly stain spreading across his tunic. His breathing is a ragged, shallow thing. Torin! I drop to my knees beside him, my hands hovering over the wound, not knowing what to do. His eyes flutter open, hazy with pain. My king, he rasps, a bloody cough shaking his body. I failed you. I'm sorry. What happened, Torin? Where is she? I demand, my voice breaking. Damien, he chokes out. He didn't use force, at first. He came to the council. He had proof. Proof? Proof of what? Torin's eyes meet mine and they are filled with a terrible, pained confusion. He told them who she is. He told them she is Lyra of Silverwood, a spy sent to destroy our house from within. He used your affection for her as proof that her spell was working. The air leaves my lungs in a single gut-wrenching blow. He didn't use a lie. He used the truth. He twisted the most sacred secret in the kingdom into his greatest weapon. He took her, Torin whispers, his strength fading. They are holding her in the black cell, for public execution at dawn, for treason. My world tilted, then shattered into a million pieces. I have failed. I have failed her completely. My political games, my caution, it has all led to this. My attempt to protect her has signed her death warrant. Torin's hand fumbles at his belt, and he presses a cold, heavy object into my palm. A key. The old tunnels, he gasps, his last breath a bloody sigh. Go, my king. Save your queen. And then his eyes go vacant. His hand falls away, and I am alone. Utterly and completely alone in my stolen castle, with the key to a dead end and the blood of my most loyal man on my hands. Chapter 18. The Tunnels. They are the guts of the castle, cold, damp, and dark. The air smells of wet stone and decay. It smells like my failure. I press a hand against the rough-hewn wall, the stone slick with slime, and I stop. I can't breathe. I am a king with no throne, an alpha with no pack, a man who has just led his mate to the executioner's block, and it's all my fault. My mind screams. That night in my study, handle it quietly, I had told him. I gave him the knife. My oath to my father. It rings in my ears, a bitter, mocking ghost. Protect your brother. I did. I protected him from his enemies. I protected him from the council. I protected him from himself. I cleaned up his messes, smoothed over his cruelties, excused his ambition. Why? Because I swore an oath to a dying man. Because he was my blood, and I believed that bond was sacred. Because deep down I was a coward. I was afraid of the chaos, of the instability a war between brothers would bring. In the stillness that followed, the devastating truth finally lands. My love for my brother. It was not love. It was poison. My honor. It was not honor. It was a fatal flaw. I have spent my entire reign trying to hold a cracked vase together, all while the man I was protecting was a monster waiting to shatter it. I slide down the damp wall, my back scraping against the stone, until I am sitting in the dirt and the darkness. There is no plan, no hope, just the crushing weight of my own colossal mistake. She trusted me. In the garden, she placed her hand on my arm, a fragile, tentative bridge between our two worlds, and I led her right off a cliff. What good is a crown if you can't protect the one thing that gives it meaning? What good is an alpha if he cannot save his mate? In that moment, in the cold, silent dark, the king dies. The politician, the diplomat, the dutiful son, he bleeds out on the damp stone floor. All that is left is the wolf. All that is left is a raw, aching rage and a soul screaming her name. And then, I hear it. Faintly, through tons of stone and earth, a sound echoes down the tunnel. Dong. The first toll of the dawn bell, the execution bell, and something inside me, something I thought was dead and broken, ignites. It's not hope. It's something far more primal. It is vengeance. Chapter 19. Dong. The sound of the bell is a physical blow, a hammer against my soul. But then, as the echo faded, something inside me shifted. The despair, that cold, heavy sludge in my veins. It didn't disappear. No, it crystallized. It hardened into something new, something sharp and clean and full of purpose. Her face flashed in my mind. Not the terrified servant in the hall, but the queen in the garden, her chin held high against the mockery of my court. The thought of her dying because of my weakness, my blindness, it ignited a fire that burned away all the grief and left only a cold, pure resolve. The king was dead. The politician was gone. Maybe it was fate that they had to die so the Alpha could finally live. In the span of a breath, I was on my feet. I no longer felt the damp chill of the tunnels. I no longer felt the sting of grief for Torin. All I felt was the thrumming of the bond, a golden cord pulling me forward, and the icy certainty of what I had to do. I cannot save her by being a king, I thought, my hands clenching into fists. I must save her by being the wolf. My body moved on instinct. My feet, which had carried me into this pit of despair, now carried me forward with a hunter's silent purpose. I knew these tunnels. I had played in them as a boy. But now, I moved through them as their master. The darkness a welcome cloak. The distant tolling bell was no longer a sound of death, it was a countdown, and I was coming to answer it. Chapter 20. The old guard barracks were deep in the castle's foundations, a place of stone and iron and forgotten honor. Damien, in his arrogance, would never think to look here. These were my father's men, grizzled wolves with loyalty etched into the lines on their faces. They were loyal to the memory of a true king, not the ambition of a cruel prince. I found them gathered around a low fire, their faces grim, the news of the castle's lockdown having reached them. When I stepped out of the shadows, they scrambled to their feet, their hands flying to their swords. Then they saw my face, and they froze. My king! One of them, a scarred old warrior named Gareth, breathed out, his eyes wide. I didn't give them time to think. I didn't give them a royal speech. Instead, I gave them the raw, bleeding truth. There is no time for pretty words, I said, my voice a low growl that echoed in the stone chamber. My brother has seized this castle, and he has done it with a lie that is wrapped around a terrible truth. I let my gaze sweep over each of them, meeting every eye, letting them see the wolf I had unleashed. The girl he means to execute at dawn for treason. He accuses her of being Lyra of Silverwood. I paused, letting the name sink in. He is right. She is. A wave of shocked muttering swept through the room. But she is no spy, I continued, my voice rising with a cold, righteous fury. She is the sole survivor of the Silverwood massacre, the last of the royal line, a queen my brother tried to erase from the world 20 years ago. The silence that followed was absolute. It was a silence filled with dawning horror. My brother is not just a usurper, I declared, and the words were a sentence of death. He is a war criminal, a butcher of women and children. The kingdom we live in is a kingdom built on the blood of innocence. I took a step forward into the flickering firelight. I have spent my life honoring my father's wish to protect my brother. Because of that, I have been blind. I have been a fool. That foolishness dies today. Today we take back this castle. We expose the truth. And we serve justice, not for a crown, but for the very soul of this kingdom. I didn't command them. I didn't ask them. I simply stood there, my heart bare, my purpose absolute. Gareth was the first to move. He drew his sword, not with a flourish, but with a slow, deliberate scrape of steel. He knelt. My sword and my life are yours, my king. One by one, the others followed. The sound of a dozen old swords being drawn was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. Our plan was simple, brutal. We would use the tunnels to get to the main courtyard, and we would time our arrival for the moment just before the axe was meant to fall. Chapter 21. The final tunnel was narrow, and it smelled of old earth and impending bloodshed. We moved in silence, a small pack of gray-furred wolves on a final hunt. With every step I took, the bond pulsed, a desperate, frantic rhythm that matched the beating of my own heart. I'm coming. Hold on. I'm coming. As we neared the hidden exit behind the grandstand, sounds from the courtyard above began to filter down. The low murmur of a massive crowd, a woman weeping somewhere. And then, a voice. Damien's voice, amplified by the stone walls, dripping with false piety. And so, with a heavy heart, We must cleanse this kingdom of the Silverwood spy who sought to bewitch our king and destroy us from within," he boomed. "Her very existence is a treason against the peace your true royal family has fought so hard to build." My teeth ground together. He was not just killing her. He was turning her into a monster to secure his own throne. He was cementing his reign with her blood, with a lie that would poison generations. The murmur of the crowd shifted, a low growl of agreement. They believed him. Her pulse raced in my veins, a frantic terror I could feel as if it were my own. We reached the grate that looked out into the courtyard. I saw her. She was on her knees on the execution platform, her hands bound, her simple dress dirty. But her head was high. Her back was straight. Even now, kneeling before death, she looked more royal than my brother ever had in his entire pampered life. The executioner, a massive, hooded figure, stepped forward. He raised his enormous, gleaming axe high into the morning light. The crowd gasped as one. The moment stretched, thin and brittle as glass. My men looked to me, their eyes asking the silent question. I gave a single, sharp nod, and as the axe began its descent, I kicked open the grate and stepped out of the shadows and into the blinding sun. My voice rang out over the stunned silence, a crack of thunder breaking the spell. "I challenge this." Chapter 22. The axe stopped, just a hand's breadth from Lyra's neck. A breath. Silence. The entire courtyard was a statue garden, 1,000 faces frozen in disbelief, their eyes locked on me. The executioner stood trembling, his massive axe held aloft, a puppet whose strings had been cut. Damien, on the dais, was the first to break. His face, which had been a mask of triumph, twisted into a snarl of pure reptilian fury. "What is the meaning of this? Seize him! He is bewitched! The execution will proceed!" But his guards hesitated. Their eyes darted from him to me, and they saw the difference. He was a prince throwing a tantrum. I was an alpha claiming his territory. And then, from the shadows of the grandstand, Gareth and the old guard emerged, their swords drawn, a line of grim, gray-haired wolves ready for one last hunt. The crowd gasped. This was not an arrest. This was a rebellion. I ignored them all. My world had narrowed to two people, the monster on the dais and the queen on the block. I walked forward, my steps slow and deliberate, each footfall an earthquake. I didn't stop until I was standing on the platform, my shadow falling over Lyra. "You are a fool, Damien," I said, my voice carrying to every corner of the square. "You speak of a Silverwood spy. You are half right." I knelt beside Lyra. Her eyes, wide and full of a terrified, dawning hope, met mine. With a gentleness I didn't know I possessed, I pushed the collar of her rough dress aside, revealing the delicate crescent moon birthmark on her shoulder. I stood and faced the crowd. "You see this mark? This is the royal mark of the Silverwood Queens." I let my voice rise, a king's proclamation that shook the very stones. "This is no spy. This is Queen Lyra of Silverwood, the sole survivor of the massacre that put my father on his throne." A wave of shock, of horror, of dawning comprehension rolled through the crowd. "And the man who led that massacre?" I pointed a single, trembling finger at my brother. "The man who slaughtered her family in their beds? The butcher who calls himself a prince? He stands right there." And just like that, everything changed. Damien screamed in rage, a wild, cornered animal. "Lies! Kill them! Kill them all!" His personal guard, loyal to his coin, finally charged. Chaos erupted. The old guard met them with a clash of steel, but my fight wasn't with them. My fight was with him. I leaped from the platform, my sword singing as it left its sheath, and carved a path straight to the dais. Damien drew his own blade, his movements fast and skilled, but fueled by panic. Mine were fueled by a justice 20 years in the making. Our swords met, a scream of steel. We fought, a whirlwind of silver and fury. But this was never a contest. He fought for his power. I fought for her soul. With a twist of my wrist, his sword went flying, clattering across the marble. I kicked his legs out from under him and pressed the point of my blade to his throat. He stared up at me, his eyes wide with terror, finally understanding. The wolf inside me howled for blood. Kill him. End it. But a king does not murder. A king delivers justice. You will not die, I said, my voice cold as the grave. Death is a mercy you have not earned. I looked out at the silent, watching crowd. You will spend the rest of your miserable life in the black cell, the same one where you held your queen. You will be a ghost, forgotten by the world you tried to rule. I turned my back on him, on the broken thing that was my brother. The fight was over. I walked back to the platform, where Lyra was still kneeling, her eyes, her beautiful, stormy eyes, filled with tears. Without another word, I sliced through her bonds, and then I did what my soul had been screaming to do from the very beginning. I knelt before her. Chapter 23. The great hall was silent. The lords and ladies were gone. The guards were gone. Damien was gone, dragged away to his new, dark kingdom beneath the castle. Now, it was just us. Just me and Lyra, standing in the vast, empty space where her humiliation and my awakening had taken place. The air still hummed with the ghosts of what had happened. She was wrapped in my own royal cloak, the silver wolf on the back a stark contrast to her simple dress. She hadn't said a word since I cut her free. Her silence was a wall I didn't know how to climb. As the silence stretched, I knew I had to be the one to break it. I owed her that much. Lyra, I began, my voice rough. She looked at me, her eyes a deep, unreadable ocean of emotion. I took a step closer, my heart aching with the weight of a truth that was centuries old. My family, my house, we built a throne on the bones of yours. There is no apology that can erase that. There are no words that can heal what was done to you. Her breath caught, a tiny hitching sound. I am a king, I continued, the words tearing at my throat. But my crown is soaked in the blood of your family. My title is a monument to your pain. I stopped before her, my world narrowing to the brave, broken woman standing in front of me. I cannot change my blood, but I can change the future. I did the only thing a true king could do. I surrendered. I will help you, I said, my voice raw with sincerity. I will give you my armies, my treasury, my counsel. We will find your surviving people, and I will help you take back your own crown, your own kingdom. I will abdicate my own throne if that is what it takes for justice to be done. I laid my entire world at her feet, my power, my future, my crown. It was all hers to command. My transformation from a king who clung to his title into a man who would burn it all for what was right, it was complete. Now, it was up to her. She stared at me, her eyes searching my face, looking for the trick, for the political maneuver. But there was none. There was only the man, stripped bare of his title, offering the only thing he had left. The truth. And then, for the first time, I saw something in her eyes other than fear or shock or dignity. I saw her, the woman, the queen. She took a small, hesitant step forward, and another, until she was standing so close I could feel the warmth of her body, smell the scent of jasmine and storms. She reached out a trembling hand, not to my crown, not to my arm, but to my face. Her cool fingers gently touched the scar above my eyebrow. "And what about the bond?" she whispered, her voice a fragile melody. "What about us?" Chapter 24. Weeks later, the sun felt different. It wasn't just the warmth on my skin. It was a light that seemed to reach deeper, into the cold, stone halls of the castle, into the once shadowed corners of my own soul. I stood on the grand balcony overlooking the main courtyard, the same courtyard where she was meant to die. Now, it was filled with life. The sound of laughter and music drifted up on the warm breeze. My people, in their bright tunics, mingled with a small, growing contingent of newcomers in the dark greens and silvers of Silverwood. They were cautious, like two different kinds of wolves learning to share a territory. But they were not fighting. They were healing. As if the world narrowed to a single point of light, she came to stand beside me. Lyra, my queen. She had chosen, not to reclaim a lost kingdom, but to build a new one. Here, with me. We had sent out emissaries, finding the scattered survivors of her bloodline, offering them a home and a future at the heart of the kingdom that had once tried to destroy them. She was wearing a gown of deep forest green, the silver crescent moon of her house embroidered over her heart. She looked every inch the queen she was born to be. Her hand found mine, our fingers lacing together in a way that felt as natural as breathing. Lord Valerius is still grumbling, she said, a small, teasing smile playing on her lips. Her voice, once a timid whisper, was now filled with a quiet, confident authority. He says a kingdom cannot have two rulers. I turned to her, my heart swelling with a love so fierce it almost hurt. Then he is a fool, I murmured, my thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. He thinks a kingdom is a crown. We know it's a bond. The air thickened between us, no longer with tension, but with a deep, abiding peace. The primal, raging fire of the mate bond had settled into an unbreakable, radiant warmth. It was the foundation of our new world. She leaned her head against my shoulder, her dark hair soft against my cheek. "And what of the king?" she asked softly. "Is he happy?" I looked out over our healing kingdom, at the impossible peace we were building from the ashes of my brother's hate. I looked down at the incredible woman by my side, the queen who had been hiding in plain sight, the mate who had saved me from my own gilded cage. The political king, the prisoner of duty, was a distant ghost, and in his place stood a man, an alpha, a partner, a man who had been lost in the shadows of a crown and had only found his true soul in the light of her eyes. "Yes," I said, my voice thick with an emotion I would never again hide. "For the first time in his life, he is."